Welcome to Home Video Hangouts. I'm Cody, and if you've been watching my videos lately, you already know that I'm a big fan of movies and collecting physical media. But what you may not know is I'm also a big fan of video games. I've been playing video games my whole life, and I think video games have some really great stories in a lot of cases that are sometimes even better than what we see in movies and TV shows. And so I'm really happy to see some of the great TV shows and movies that have been coming out lately that are based on video games. Just to name a few, we've had the Halo series, which I thought was alright. We've had others come out from the PlayStation Network, like Twisted Metal, which was really cool, had some great humor in it. And of course, we had The Last of Us, which I thought was a great show. So with that in mind, I wanted to share with you 10 different video games that I think should get some kind of TV or movie release. And some of these, there's already talks about making that happen, but I'm just going to give you my top 10 for where I think they would fit really well into a movie or a TV series and why that is. And then I'd love to hear in the comments as well what your thoughts are and if you'd like to see one of these video games made into a movie also. But let's dive right in with the one on the number 10 spot. So first of all, we have Elden Ring. Elden Ring was such an incredible video game. I'm still playing through it currently, and it really took the video game industry by storm. There's just so many great things about it. It's very challenging. There's some great exploration. But what I found with Elden Ring is while there's some lore in Elden Ring, it doesn't have the same story-driven plot that a lot of other video games have. Like if you play something like The Last of Us, that's a very story-driven game. Whereas Elden Ring, it's more about the gameplay and overcoming challenges and things like that. But the world that it's set in is so incredible, and I think there's so much they could do to build upon the lore that's there and build this out into a movie or even a TV series, because we already know that there's a huge fan base for Elden Ring, and I think a lot of people who loved playing that game would love to see further expansion on the storyline and the mythology and the lore of that game. So Elden Ring was the first I wanted to bring up just because of how monumental of a video game that was for the industry and for gamers overall. Next, in the number 9 spot, I wanted to talk about the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Skyrim is another game that took the whole industry by storm. I spent so many hours playing that game, and there's so much to explore in it, so much to see, and so many people have played that game on so many different platforms. And this one did have a little bit more of a storyline than what I would say is there in Elden Ring, but it's another one where I feel like because of how many people are into this game and how many people appreciate this game and how many people are modding this game, that if this were to be made into a TV show or a movie, it would have great success too, especially when we see popular shows like House of the Dragon or just Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. Like, I feel like this kind of fits in with those to a certain extent, and I think if people who are playing this game were to watch those shows, it could be very successful. And I think this could be said about really any of the Elder Scrolls games. There's a lot that could be built on the story in those into some kind of TV series or movie. And I would definitely appreciate watching those if that was made. And I think with everything that's happened with Xbox and Bethesda coming together, I think they need to put out some more big name media like this to compete with Sony. And that would probably help those companies as a whole as well. So I think there's a lot of reasons to make something like that happen. You know, they could use the whole Elder Scrolls franchise to make it into some kind of TV show or movie, or even just something based on Skyrim. I think would be really cool, like maybe before the next Elder Scrolls come out. So I think that would be a good one as well. All right, now in the number 8 spot, we have Gears of War. So Gears of War is one of the first video games I really got into when I was playing video games on my Xbox 360, and I really appreciated it for the story that went along with the kind of gameplay elements that were in that whole series. And I really wanted that series to just keep going and going, and I kind of fell off of it after Gears of War 3, but I would say that this is such a solid franchise for Xbox that there's a lot they could do with some kind of TV show or movie based on this, and I think the characters would be really great for that, and I just think there's a lot of opportunity there. They can use these really cool creatures in this game in the lore for a really great series or movie. And so I think there's a lot of different directions that could go. They could even potentially with this one, maybe even do something animated with it. That might be kind of cool, but I would definitely like to see more happening with Gears of War. All right, now the next one I wanted to discuss was Cyberpunk 2077. So with this one, you know, when this game came out, we saw that they were using Keanu Reeves in it. So they were kind of bringing a actor who was known for some big name movies into this video game. And I think that was really great. And I think there's already been, you know, a little bit of delving into kind of the media space in terms of development of a TV series or a movie. But I think there's a lot more that could be done here. I think if they were to do a live action movie or series with this and either incorporate Keanu Reeves or do kind of a spin-off that way, I think that would be really great. I mean, we've already seen some cyberpunk style media do really well, like Blade Runner or Ghost in the Shell, and I think I'd like to see more of that, especially coming out on the 4K format. This kind of setting is really awesome when you have something on a 4K disc and you have an HDR capable TV like an OLED. And so I just would really like to see more of this kind of environment in movies and TV shows in general. And I think this was such a solid game despite all the issues it had at release. I think in terms of the story elements and everything that went into it, it's just such a solid game to where I'd like to see it expanded upon. And I'm sure there'll be sequels to these games. They want to save some of the story content for sequels to games like this. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity here for expansion into a series or a movie as well. All right, next up, we got another Sony franchise I wanted to bring up, which is Ratchet & Clank. So Ratchet & Clank, in my opinion, is one of the best kind of kid-oriented or platformer animated series on the PlayStation Network, and I think they're, with everything Sony's doing right now with developing TV series and movies, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do something with Ratchet & Clank. I think it would be more something geared towards younger kids if they were to do that, more so than something for adults. I think there's a lot more opportunity to kind of bring the Ratchet & Clank franchise to younger generations. And the last game they released was really great. So I think there's some opportunity there. I could see something like a Ratchet & Clank show going on a streaming service and being successful. So I do think that's something Sony should look into if they're not already. All right, now this next one may seem like a little bit of an odd choice. I wanted to discuss Forza Horizon. So first of all, we had, you know, the regular Forza games came out that were kind of a racing simulator that competed with Gran Turismo on the Sony side. And then recently we've seen a Gran Turismo movie come out, which was really awesome. I really enjoyed that one a lot. And it got me thinking about what Xbox could do with a Forza Horizon movie potentially. And how I think that would work is we'd have something where they bring elements from a successful franchise like the Fast and Furious, which is not probably going to be going on much longer. And I think if they were to kind of combine some of the street racing-esque elements from Fast and Furious and put it into this festival format that they introduced with the Forza Horizon video game series, I think that could make for a really intriguing movie for kind of the Fast and Furious fans who are disappointed that that movie series is not going to keep continuing on. Because while there's some people who hate Fast and Furious, there's a lot of people like myself who've been watching it for years who have an appreciation for it. And I appreciate some of the other car and racing movies that have come out, you know, that are great in their own way. As I mentioned, Gran Turismo or Need for Speed that came in the past. But I do think that Forza Horizon could present a very unique opportunity for a movie. All right, next up to discuss another Bethesda game, we have Starfield. This is a very recent game that released, but one that I really loved. And there's so much hype going into the release of this game, and it has such an expansive universe, and I really enjoyed what they chose for the plot of this game. And I think with this type of kind of intergalactic story, there's so much that could be expanded upon. Just like we've seen how, you know, Star Wars movies could go on forever in so many different directions. I think there's a lot that could be done with Starfield as well. And I think, you know, in the same way that we've seen something like Twisted Metal get a series when that was a game that didn't have a lot of story to it, I think they could go in a million different directions with a story based on Starfield that kind of adds in to the lore of the game or connects to the game in some way. And I'd really appreciate that just because of how much I enjoyed the game. And this would be another opportunity for Xbox to get into the TV and movie space some more. Alright, now another one I want to provide a perspective on that is not as closely tied to specifically Xbox or PlayStation is the Grand Theft Auto franchise. And this is another one where there's so many different directions they could go, but in my opinion, this is just one of the video game series that's almost more popular than any other. I mean, there's so much hype about the next Grand Theft Auto game releasing, and so I think if they were to do some kind of TV series, I would say ideally a TV series over a movie on this one, there would be so much opportunity. I mean, we look at how many different genres could be combined into something like a Grand Theft Auto TV series. I mean, there's just so many different directions they could go, so many different settings for like a city they could use, and this concept makes me think of some of the TV shows on Stars, like Power, something like that, or just, you know, some of the different kind of gangster style TV shows that have been released in the past. And so I just think there's so much opportunity here with what could be done with the Grand Theft Auto series, and I think so many people would be into that and intrigued by that, and so I'd love to see a Grand Theft Auto series happen. Alright, now on a similar note, I think there's also a lot of opportunity with Red Dead Redemption. Both the Red Dead Redemption games were very successful. They were very long and had a lot of different story elements and lore mixed into them, and there's still a strong subset of people who are very into Westerns. And I think while Westerns a lot of times appeal to a older generation, I think Red Dead Redemption still appeals to a younger generation of video gamers. And I think this, a TV series probably, or maybe even a movie, but more likely a TV series, could kind of connect with people who don't necessarily really get into some of the Western style TV shows that already exist, but who are really into these video games. I think this could really expand upon the TV series genre of Westerns and really bring new life to that market that could result in more people watching other Western movies and TV shows from there. Alright, now there's one last one I wanted to discuss, and then I'm going to give a bonus one as well after that. These are a couple that I was a little more unsure about, but I still think there's opportunity with. So in the last spot, I would say would be Returnal. This was a very unique video game. It reminds me of Elden Ring a little bit in that the focus of this game is more so on overcoming gameplay challenges more so than a storyline. But again, the environment here is ripe for a story being built. And I think when you have these types of games that are set in like a outer space setting, or potentially there's just so many different spin-offs that could happen story-wise from that, whether they were to make future Returnal games or a series on TV or a movie. I think there's a lot of different directions they can go with, like a sci-fi spin on this, and I think that could make for an interesting TV show or movie. It might be difficult to do, it might not work out, might be best just left as is with the game, but I think there still could be opportunity there. Now, in a bonus spot here, number 11 bonus here, I wanted to discuss Far Cry. Far Cry has been around for quite a while. There's been a lot of different releases. Some people are getting really tired of those games. I personally love these games still, and I think Far Cry 5 is one of my favorites. But I think that there could be a unique opportunity to take kind of the structure of one of these games and build it into a movie or a TV series. And we've already seen how each one of these has kind of a unique story, and the kind of continuous plot that these have, where there's some kind of authoritarian leader that you have to overtake. I mean, there's so many movies that use that concept, and I think if they were to somehow make a Far Cry movie, I would say this one's probably better geared towards a movie than a TV series. I think that would be pretty solid. If they were to bring some unique ideas to it, tie it to some of the games somehow, I think that could be really interesting. And a last point I wanted to make with this whole list is, I think when you're making a movie or a TV series based on a video game, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. One is to take something like what they do with Twisted Metal, where you don't really connect it really closely to the game. You just use elements from the game, like characters or vehicle, something like that, and then create some new characters and build a story off of that, and that can work pretty well. Or there's other ones where we look at, say, The Last of Us, where it's almost the exact same story that's in the game, just developed for TV or a movie, and I think both of those can work. But another thing I think would be really interesting to see is, for example, something like Far Cry, is what if they took a bunch of elements from the games and then expanded on some of the storyline from the games in the TV series or movie, to where maybe something starts as a video game but then expands into an ongoing TV series or movie. Like, for example, with how long Far Cry has been going on, what if we saw some kind of culmination of a bunch of characters from Far Cry coming together into a TV series or a movie? Or the same could be said with some of these other series. Like, what if there's some kind of spin-off from Gears of War that incorporates multiple characters into it? And so there's a lot of opportunity there, a lot of different unique pathways that could split off from these games into a TV series or movie. But again, let me know in the comments what you would like to see from the video game world come into a TV series or movie, and let me know if you agree with any of these on my list, or if you've heard anything about any of these already being developed into a TV series or movie. I know that's already happening to a certain extent with some of these. But also, if you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below so you can stay updated with the latest videos I have releasing. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.